I got to tell you a 1 second funny story that you just overlapped with you.
Yeah.
So I see on the schedule like a few weeks out. This is a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Brian Cox in the schedule. And I'm like, oh, cool, the guy from Succession. I can't wait to talk to him. And I keep saying to Rob and Monica, I'm like, I'm going to try to get him in the interview to say, fuck off. Do you watch Succession? So day of, we're eating lunch about like an hour before he gets here. I say it again to them, and they're like, why do you keep saying fuck off? And they go, it's not the actor Brian Cox, it's the physicist Brian Cox. And I was like, oh, fuck. I need a lot more research to have a physicist done. Anyways, I just saw Monica in the yard, and she goes,
Yeah, I was like, I didn't realize it was the actor. I thought it was an expert separately, just with the same name.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I didn't know you also did this.
Did you say that when we're recording? That makes me so happy.
I was like,
and they're like, really like your book? I didn't know you were an actor.
Exactly. I didn't know you were an expert.
I'm always trying to snatch another identity away from acting. First it was writing, then directing, and then anything else. I'm like, please validate me in another way.
I know, right? Because I think it is hard when you're, because like as an actor, you're so not in control.
Yeah, right.
And people prejudge you based off the work you've done or whatever, and it's just like a very vulnerable place to be in.
And I had made a career of playing idiots, particularly. So
you want to show off your
brand. Yeah, I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder.
You should try Teen Idol. It's a different.
I think all these things come with their trade-offs, don't they?
They do.
Pull that fucker a little closer to you. I want to hear that.
Dulcet tone.
Nice. That's the word I couldn't remember. Feel free to. Oh, look at this. Don't worry. Ben is mechanical. He's a man.
Oh, my God.
I don't have the longest legs for this couch, but that's okay.
It's not a great couch, okay?
This is a great couch. I am just too short for couches today. All couches are too deep for me.
They really did go deep.
They're fine for you. You can do this.
Yeah, there was a paradigm shift about 18 years ago in couches, and they got deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
These are not the couches we grew up sitting on.
No, they're not.
No.
They're not. And they are more comfortable, except I just feel like such an old man saying this. My back is always like, because I'm supposed to.
Feel free to take that pillow to augment
your.
Do that.
Guys. Do that.
Thank you.
It's
We
super
want you to be
comfortable.
comfortable.
We're going to be here for 4 hours.
Oh, it's going to go deep.
My spiritual headquarters is Austin, and specifically my church is Barton Springs.
Yeah, buddy. It is glorious, isn't it?
Yeah, did you as a little kid?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. It hasn't changed, right? They haven't fucked it with it, have they?
No, the concrete's 75
I mean,
years old, and it's a grass hill. So
Great. Yeah, I mean, so much has changed in that town since I grew up there.
Yeah.
And to be blunt, Elon kind of fucked it up, There's, in my opinion, there's just cyber trucks are not what I think of as the Austin vibe.
It's weird. When you think of weird, that doesn't the Cybertruck.
I mean, it is weird, to be
it's
fair.
not the same brand weird.
Yeah, exactly. Much more.
But I would argue that transformation was already happening when I did Idiocracy there in 2004, because Dell was there, and a couple big tech companies had already moved there. So that was happening.
By the way, Idiocracy. Wow, talk about a movie that was ahead of its time. Holy crap. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but Jesus Christ.
Generally during elections, people like to talk about it.
Indeed.
There's been screenings at times.
Uh-huh.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Grubhub. Gold Days is here, which feels like a dangerous time to be ordering food because suddenly everyone in your life is very interested in what you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Grubhub Plus members are getting nonstop savings all month long. And if you're not a member yet, you can join for just 99 cents a month for 6 months. That's a 90% discount off of the usual price. Grubhub Plus membership auto-renews and terms apply. Sign up now in the app or at grubhub.com/plus/gold. You're multi-generation, Austin, right?
Yeah.
Your grandfather...
he does
no more
research.
Brian Cox anymore. He's doing his research.
He taught at UT.
Yeah, he founded the communications department, co-founded it, and started the public radio and television stations there.
And he passed the 1967 Public Broadcast Act, wherever the hell it's called.
It. Yeah, which now they're doing their best to rip apart. So Yeah, he was a great guy, great man. He came through Ellis Island. Like his parents were Dutch immigrants, and first guy in his family to go to college.
Oh wow!
Really, yeah. Just that generation where there were guys who were like came from nothing, and did incredible work. And you're kind of aware of that at a very early age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got to toe the line a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I remember. Oh my God, he was such a sweet but kind of formidable person, and he loved to throw these dinner parties, and I remember the family gathering, and obviously when the grandfathers that you had to, like everyone had to behave. And I had just come from summer camp. Oh. Where, of course, you like curse a blue streak. No, it was language. It was cursing a blue streak. And I can't remember what I did. I dropped an F-bomb or I did something like totally inappropriate.
Okay.
And it was just record scratch. And I like retreated tried to retreat into the chair. But he was.
Was that your father's father?
Father's father, yeah.
And then he became an attorney, your father?
Yeah, my father's an attorney.
What type of law does he practice?
He practices...
personal injury?
No, thank God. Regulatory litigation, which sounds as scintillating as it is, but he has been on the good side. He represented Planned Parenthood when they were being attacked by trying to cut those clinics down, which unfortunately they succeeded in. He's like done environmental law. He's an expert on workers' comp in Texas.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I say all this because it makes a lot more sense your turn into this arena. You're kind of third generation civically minded. Mm-hmm. The grandfather's getting legislation passed. Your father's working in that capacity. Yeah. So that kind of makes sense. Was it an idyllic fun? If I could have grown up anywhere, I think I would have picked Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
You're Drew Brees and you are like flag football teammates.
Yeah. And he's a great guy.
Is he? Yeah.
I haven't kept up with him, but he was just like, just really great dude. And holy crap. Like, obviously as a kid, you would never have imagined that someone that you grew up with is going to be this, like, I guess he's probably going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback at some point, right? Yeah. I feel like he isn't yet, but he should be. But like, I remember the first day we went to the park to like throw,
He immediately was always great.
Just like,
yeah.
You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're just born with that.
A little bit. Yeah. His dad was a quarterback at Baylor. And so I think he just had like great technique. Not a tall guy, like probably 5'10", 5'11". Yeah,
I've only met him once. I did this bit for the Ellen show at the Super Bowl in Minnesota, and we were playing. We were trying to tackle each other with these remote control fucking punching bags, and I took him out on accident at the legs, and I was like, oh my God, what if I had fucked up his whole game in a couple days? But he was such a rad dude. You're hanging out.
The one he was playing in?
Yes.
Oh, fuck. Actually, I went to a public middle school. We met at this private middle school that we both went to.
St. Anthony?
St. Andrews, yeah.
Oh, Andrews.
And didn't get it exactly right.
Episcopal.
The fact that you're not reading off of something and you've learned this is really, I am genuinely impressed. And I remember we had to take we had to apply to get in, and you had to take some test. And it was just me and him. And we were both nervous, and we're 10 or 11 or something like that. And he was just like a really, like a nice guy, Yeah. And I didn't know that he was an athlete like that. I mean, I could look at him even at 10 and be like, okay, this guy probably can play sports. Uh-huh. But yeah, then we got in, and then it was flag football because it was private school. They didn't want us to play with helmets.
Well, thank God. No.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm so grateful. But I had already played tackle elementary.
Okay.
I loved it. I was totally into it. And then in high school, I played for Austin High, and he went to Westlake, which was this like incredible program. It's where they shot a lot of Friday Night Lights.
Westlake's the Beverly Hills of Austin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they had an artificial turf stadium in like 1997 or whatever. They crushed us. Crushed us every year. But he really earned it. I think he started out as like third string QB, because again, not the biggest guy.
And height's important in your quarterback. You want to be able to see over everything.
Yeah, he literally probably could not see over those linemen and was having to like drop a ball, 30 yards down the field. Yeah. Like, it's just like, how do you even do that?
Yeah. Spooky.
Yeah, super spooky.
So you played high school football. You were a wide receiver,
Yeah, wide receiver, strong safety. Yeah.
And then You went to University of Virginia? Or Virginia? I can do it, man.
Virginia.
Virginity. You went to the University of Virginia.
Let's start that. Let's start that college.
There would be a lot of applicants nowadays, I think. Yeah, you went there, and again, now you're third generation going there, right?
Yeah, which was kind of like, you say that and it sounds, to me anyway, it's always sounded weird, like I was expected to go there, which was not the vibe.
Yeah.
I was basically not that focused in high school on grades. I went to a regular public high school, Austin, Texas, which was wonderful, but I was playing football and drinking and, chasing girls, and I was just not focused on, like, the academic side of things.
Were you having the Friday Night's Life experience that I watched on TV? Like, you're on the football team in Texas. Or do girls love you? I mean,
there was a little bit of that. I mean, not, none
Riggins
of us
level.
Right. None of us looked like
Tim Riggins.
Tim Riggins or any of those guys. But and it was Austin, so it was like the slightly right. You're not like Odessa Permian, like that's all there is. But yeah, no, it's intense. Like Texas high school football is like. Yeah. People show up, Friday Night Lights. People show up on a Friday.
Oh, I would have loved it. It's like your first taste of being famous.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Also, your first taste of like what happens when you fail publicly. Because I remember we played Westlake, right? Drew's team. We made the playoffs. I think it was the playoff game, was it? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the regular season. But they were incredible, right? They went on to, I believe, win the state championship or at least get to the game. Anyway, we play them. We're at our home field, House Park, and it's packed, both sides. They're like already up in the first quarter, but they're the fullback. They do just a dive. The fullback takes the ball off center, and I'm strong safety, and they've just like obliterated the lineman, obliterated the linebacker, and it's me and this fullback in the hole, and I try to hit him. He just trucks me, trucks me to the point where I'm like back on my ass in front of thousands of people. My memory, anyway, is that he laughed as he did it. Like, he trucked me and laughed. Taste of fame, though. Taste of fame.
But University of Virginia's relevant in this because you got a degree in economics, and I guess my curiosity is, what was the game plan?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't much of a game plan at age 18. I didn't go there knowing what I wanted to study. My dad is a lawyer, it was talked about, but so I was like, I'll just study things I'm interested in that could sort of plausibly prepare me for law school.
Okay, so potentially you were in a law school.
Maybe, sure. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what
it's a good, history. There's a few good.
I also was like, I'll be an international businessman. like, I don't know. I was an 18-year-old boy. Like, I don't know what I was doing.
Am I right to guess, and we've interviewed a lot of economists, and Monica and I were just talking about this 2 days ago. I was like, economists are far more interesting than meets the eye in that they came up with game theory, that most of social science, these psychological experiments are on the backs of these economic principles. Yeah. It's a very fascinating force in the world that I think people have very little understanding of.
Yes.
And it's why we have revolutions, and it's why we have, and it's a bit mathematical, and there's some predictive qualities to it. It's like a very fascinating domain that is applicable to lots of other areas.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine when you entered it, you knew that yet. You were maybe like, I'm good at math?
No, so that's the irony, is I think a lot of people think of economics as this sort of dry mathematical science. And I guess it certainly has a mathematical side to it. But of course, if economics is the study of how people behave in an economy and interact with each other on an individual level and also on a collective level in group settings and societal settings, like, it is really in some senses the study of human behavior, right?
Well, Darwinism is market, in a sense, is market forces. Like, everything's a market.
Right. But also, like, I was always interested in the behavioral economics, which is the study of how human beings actually interact, because there's sort of like a couple of schools of thought, and there's a sort of a more traditional economics that like basically takes this huge presumption that everyone is a rational actor,
right?
And they are maximizing their utility, which is this wonderfully vague phrase. And then you ask, what's the utility? It's like, well, it's whatever they did that's rational. Like, it's sort of like a
non-falsifiable.
Yeah, it sort of like circles back on itself. And behavioral economists poke holes in that all the time.
Yes.
Because we do all sorts of things that aren't quote-unquote rational.
And against our self-interests.
Yes. And so I've always been fascinated by that, which maybe perhaps led me a little into acting in the sense of, like, it's the study of human behavior as well, right?
Yeah.
and also maybe into true crime too.
Yeah.
Because I'm also fascinated by that, which has led me to this weird, place where I am now.
Yeah, they have illuminated all these inherent biases we have that make us irrational in pursuit of these outcomes. So we have, confirmation bias. We have loss bias. We can observe people acting in a way that's not good for them a lot through these experiments.
Yeah.
And we've been able to identify a lot of these different biases we kind of inherently have.
Yeah.
And they're fascinating. Yeah, and they're permeating every single topic at a university.
And I think one of the things that it does that's sort of frustrating for these other economists, because they want to presume rationality so that they can model what's going to happen.
Yeah,
right? Predict what's going to happen. But the unfortunate reality, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of behavioral economists, is like, you can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, you can do a little bit. You can try.
Yeah.
But just like humans are fallible and irrational, the models are never going to be able to sort of predict that.
All you can do, and it's misleading, is you can observe the outcome and make sense of it after the fact.
Correct.
And that leads you to believe that, okay, so now we know what led people to this decision, so we can pull these levers and we'll get a different outcome. But then you run that, and then we learn another batch of things about people.
Exactly, which maybe perhaps brings us to crypto, because it's like you can look back at sort of financial manias of the past, and I was finding a lot of similarities between crypto and a lot of these other things. In economics and in other, through different lenses. But while you're in the middle of it, until it actually collapses, who's to say really, am I crazy? Are they crazy?
Only time's going to tell.
Right.
Yeah. Even this debate. So I happen to be on your side.
Which is, it's okay if you're not. I'm not. Yeah.
Some of my best friends right now, we debate this all the time.
Right. It's a very guy thing.
It is a very guy thing. I want to get into the type of person that's really, really drawn to crypto. That has evolved. But I've always danced around it because, to be honest, I know how fervent the community is, and I don't need them as an enemy, right? There's a lot of people sitting in front of computers 12 hours a day.
That's a good point.
And I don't need them against me. So I've always just treaded lightly. So I love having you as the canary here. And I'll make you say a lot of the stuff that I've been thinking.
Love it.
But I have, from its first explanation, been like, well, hold on. It seems to be violating a lot of definitions of the words you're using. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
This is going to be the first interview you ever do where I'm not going to say a certain word. And I've watched your doc, and so that's just that's going to be an offering.
Okay.
So suffice to say, you had a really successful acting career.
Oh, I see what you mean. Is it one word or two words that you're not going to, or three words?
Well, now everyone needs to know what the words are.
You know what the word is. I refuse to do it. He was on a show for, let's just say this.
I know what show he was on.
He was on a show for 4 years. Then he was on a show for 5 years that was hugely popular. Then he was on another show for 5 years that was hugely popular. And as he's gone to Congress and to CNBC, no matter where he goes, it's just, he cannot.
I'm always running out.
It's great. It's a fun part of the documentary. You run straight at that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So anyways, I'm like, I'll be the first person to not say this word to him out loud, or these 3 words of this acronym. But at any rate, you'd have, by all accounts, anyone who can end up on a TV show that goes multiple years, you're in the single digit percentages.
Of course.
To have 3 shows that go a total of 14 seasons is almost impossible.
Yeah. It's pretty unlikely. I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, I am talented. I'm not trying to be a humble brag or whatever, but there's also an incredible amount of luck that's involved there.
There is. I'll argue you doing Junebug right out of the gates. Oh, what a blessing. Do you remember Junebug?
The movie?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yes.
Amy Adams' husband with the mustache.
Oh my God. I haven't seen it since college, but I was obsessed with it for a minute. I watched it over and over and over again.
So I had done the first season of the OC, and you're trying to find
what that is, but go ahead.
Exactly, whatever, of the show that shall not be named. And it's all about finding the hiatus movie, and I don't have any idea of what I'm doing, right? I'm very young. I'm
you got it quick, man. I'm a little envious of how fucking quick. You moved here in 2003 or something? You ended up on the show
2002 and got it in 3.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel the same way. It happened really quick. It was a year and 7 days after I landed in LA where I got that gig on the show that won't be named, and and it was just like a rocket ship, which can only really happen, I feel like, in this town with this.
And Silicon Valley, ironically.
Right.
Sam
that's a good point.
Bankman-Fried.
Yeah, totally, right? Yeah.
There's a lot of overlap.
And
And then you start believing yourself a little more than you should. Yeah.
But you also have severe imposter syndrom.
Yes.
Because I spent a lot of time in therapy talking about the show that will be named. So I'll just share some things with some folks, which I'm sure your guests, many guests have mentioned similar things. But, imposter syndrome is like ubiquitous, I feel like. Everyone has some of it. But it is particularly weird to get sort of fame at an early age because nobody, in my opinion, deserves it, right? It's not a thing you deserve. It's like a thing that happens to you, right? And so you feel this weird tension between like, this is awesome, this is great, but also
fraudulence.
Kind of like it could go away like that.
Yeah.
Like what happens if people know who I actually am as opposed to like the tough kid from the wrong side of the tracks that I'm playing and I'm just like this econ dork guy who like, I had spent so little time on a set. I had done like a guest star, a co-star. I maybe spent 3 days on a set prior to getting the lead of this pilot.
Yeah.
It was so bad that I was shooting the first day and I think I was method because I didn't know what else to do.
Sure.
I was just so terrified that I was like, I'm just going to stay in this. I'm going to be in the.
Yeah, I barely have my hands on it, so I can't leave it for any second.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we do. We're doing it. We rehearse a scene, and we break to light, and this guy comes up to me who kind of looks a lot like me, and he just sort of stands there awkwardly, and he's like
waiting for you to move over.
Yeah.
I had never had a stand-in before,
Yeah.
right? As a guest star or a co-star, you do your own stand-in work,
Do the
right?
standing, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was that kind of level,
Yeah.
which was hilarious too, because then I got this reputation as this really intense actor. Right? And I'm like,
funny.
no, I just didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. Back to Junebug.
Junebug.
So I remember loving it, but I didn't remember it enough. I watched the trailer again today.
Yeah.
And what a movie.
great movie.
You're fucking great in that
No,
movie.
thanks,
oh my
man.
God. She gives you that kiss on the cheek and you ask her, she's got a
Amy's-
cigarette so deadpan.
So we were trying to find the Hayes movie, and I think I literally got offered a script where the main character wore a white T-shirt and a choke chain and did fighting, and like it was literally like OC the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of money, and I was just like, I can't. If I do that, like, what happens if I'm that guy forever? Thank God I had
That's
enough.
a lot of
Impressed.
foresightedness to.
I guess so. Also fear too, of course, like double down on it. But then I read this script that was, this tiny little movie, less than $1 million.
Yeah.
And shot on film, less than $1 million. And I just loved it. Like, just was like, I understand this world. I'm from the South. I mean, Texas is sort of like a, Southwest, but it has a lot of overlap. My parents are both from the South.
You'd gone to school in Virginia.
Gone to school in Virginia. Dad's from North Carolina. Mom's from Louisiana. And this was set in a world that I was very familiar with. Mm-hmm. And I just loved the director, Phil Morrison, who's gone on to do some other great movies. And that was my first movie. And I don't think I've been able to top it since.
Well, so
and film, I like it. Yeah, anyway.
Really quick, not to shine the light on her so much, but I am watching that, and that is her breakout.
Yes.
That's her kind of introduction to the world.
Academy Award nominee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's impossibly good. Even in the trailer, I'm like, oh my God, the way she's talking so fast. And I tried out for cheerleader. You ever been a cheerleader? Blah, blah, blah. When you were observing that, again, you were pretty new still, but were you like, oh my goodness, something fucking wild's going on right there?
Yeah. Because I read with a couple of, I think because I was hot at the moment, like they were like, okay, we'll do him.
Yeah.
But we don't know about the female lead, and we don't have the money to pay anybody, who's already established. And so I read with a couple of people, and it was just like a different, it was like night and day. Right?
It was like playing with Drew Brees.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And to the point where you're like, oh crap, he's throwing the ball at me fast. You know what I mean?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Like, at least get your hands up so he doesn't hit you in the face, because it's coming. And it's very sobering when in the edit, it's like, oh, it's just them.
Well, that's interesting. You hear me a lot, but you don't see me a ton.
You don't see me deliver the line. You see them reacting to me deliver the line. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess Gotham is the last series you're on for an extended period of time, and what I admire and relate to is, I guess, season 3, you direct an episode.
Yep.
And then season 4, this is even better, you write an episode.
Yeah.
It's fucking great. No actors do. Every actor wants to direct.
Right.
They're like the boss.
Right.
No one's offering to write.
Yeah. And I came from a family of writers in the sense that my mom's a poet. My uncle, Robert Schenken, is a playwright and a screenwriter.
Yeah, Pulitzer Prize
winner, Tony winner, Emmy winner. It's interesting how you sort of define yourself, but I had never thought of myself as a writer. Mm-hmm. And yet I was fascinated by it. And I had also done so much TV, a couple hundred hours of TV, that I was like, I got to try new things. Like, you got to give me more stuff, to do.
Yeah.
And basically I just kept asking them over it. And I got to go to the writer's room after the first year and sit with them and hang with them. I didn't get to write yet, but I got to and so you slowly build up that trust and you basically slowly break them down to the point where they sort of have to let you try
it. It went bad
it.
for me. I spec wrote an episode of Parenthood.
Oh, interesting.
I'm like, I'm going to write an episode
That's
of the
so ballsy.
show. I've already sold screenplays. I'm already a writer.
Right. Yeah.
And I should have just asked, can I write? But instead I'm like, I'm going to just spec an episode.
Okay.
And then when I gave it, I underestimated what that kind of looked like a little bit because that show was so serialized. It wasn't episodic. You couldn't just write a random spec episode. I didn't know what the full arc of everyone.
Sure.
So I think I don't know that it came across in the way that I was intending to.
Oh, really?
Perhaps.
Okay. Yeah. Well, shows are so interesting, right? Like politically, there's all sorts of stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I did not do it right. I'll take all the blame. But I was just like, look at this thing I've written. I think this would be a great episode. It was a little bit like, you think that we just drop episodes into this?
Well, if it helps at all, I feel like I sort of have the opposite experience where you're assigned the episode that you're going to write because the season's already broken down. You've been in the room at least a little bit. I do remember doing a pass and there was a lot of red. Yeah,
there was a lot of suggestions.
Suggestions / we're just going to change that. But it was fun, man. It was really good, and it really did prepare me. You know the thing that it's because it was a network show. There's commercials, right? It's so you're writing to commercial breaks every single time. So there's a lot of story math.
Yeah.
It was a lot of stuff where I was like, okay, he needs to go up, and then it goes down, and then
it's very technical.
Up again, and and that's really helpful. It wasn't always the most fun as an actor to have to hit those beats every single time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It does get a little repetitive. I love Gotham, super proud of it.
When you leave that show, though, I think you have an intention to do more directing and maybe writing.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
All right, we got to take a quick break and thank our presenting sponsor, Grubhub. So here's something I've been noticing, and tell me if it's just me, but the second you order food, suddenly everyone around you becomes very invested in your dinner. Like people who weren't hungry 5 minutes ago are now hovering trying to steal a fry. And honestly, I think it's because Gold Days of Grubhub Plus is here, but only for a limited time. Gold Days has 4 weeks of Grubhub's best offers happening all month long in May, only with a Grubhub Plus membership, so you don't want to miss it. And if you're not a member yet, now is the time because new members can sign up for Grubhub Plus for just 99 cents a month for 6 months. That's a 90% discount off the usual price. Grubhub Plus membership auto-renews and terms and additional fees apply. If you're a Grubhub Plus member, you're getting $0 delivery fees and lower service fees on eligible orders and discounted priority delivery. During Gold Days, you also get rotating weekly deals like free items, money off your order, and offers on groceries powered by Instacart. So seriously, don't wait. Sign up now in the app or at grubhub.com/plus/gold and take advantage of Gold Days and this limited time offer. Visit the app or grubhub.com for more details. Or don't. But just know, you could be the one with the fries everyone's eyeing. We are supported by Allstate. Checking Allstate first could save you hundreds on car insurance. Not checking what the warning light means before pulling out of your driveway, you absolutely convinced yourself it was probably just a sensor thing right up until you were standing on the side of the road waiting for a tow. Yeah. Checking first is the right move. So check Allstate first for an auto quote. It could save you hundreds. And for fast, reliable help when you need it, add an Allstate roadside plan today. You're in good hands with Allstate. Potential savings vary. Insurance and roadside assistance plans are subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Insurance provided by Allstate North American Insurance Company, Northbrook, Illinois. Roadside assistance plans provided by Allstate Motor Club, Incorporated, an Allstate affiliate. Okay, so I guess now I want to know, how do you get to the point where you're going to write Easy Money and then also direct the doc? Like, what's the order of events?
So Gotham ends in 2019. I'm done a lot of TV, and I kind of feel like I need to do something else. I get to do a play on Broadway, which I had never done before. I was super excited about that.
Got shut down immediately.
No, so it didn't actually. It actually was a limited run that closed on its own. March 2nd of 2020.
Okay.
I had gotten a pilot. I was like about to go shoot this pilot. And the next week, New York shut down because of COVID.
Okay. I was wondering because it got nominated for a Tony.
I got nominated for Tony for the play.
What play was it?
Grand Horizons, written by Bess Wool, who I had known for like 20 years. We'd done summer stock theater together. So it was a really cool
That is cool.
moment. But yeah, then pandemic hits. Then like, I don't know about you, but I was freaking out.
Well, you were in New York too, right?
We were in New York, yeah. And my wife has like chronic asthma.
Okay.
And so given what we didn't know at the time, we were freaking out.
Yeah.
And so we moved out of the city.
Did you have new babies yet or not?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean, young kids. We didn't have our third kid yet, but we had our first two.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. So we ended up renting a place in like Western Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Beautiful area, sort of northwestern Connecticut. And it was so tranquil and lovely. Like there was some land, there was a pond on the land. I remember my stepson going out and like catching frogs every day. And my second kid was singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow."
Repeat.
On repeat.
Yeah. Little girl, right?
Little girl. At that moment, tears. Right? Just like endless tears, right? Because you're feeling at that moment. I really hope. Is it?
Right.
Is it? You know, I really hope it comes out tomorrow.
Ominous.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So a lot of emotions, but I also was, I was like looking for the next thing, and I started looking at the financial markets because I never really paid attention to them. Even though I had an econ degree, I was really conservative with my money. It was like real estate, index funds, like just, I know enough that I don't know that much. Right. My buddy Dave comes to me, and I've known Dave since UVA, but Dave had been one exception to my like conservative investing because he had come to me and said, in the past, in the mid-aughts, he was like living in my guest house as I was shooting the OC. He was like, dude, you got to buy stock in this company, this like obscure company that I had never heard of.
He had found out from a dude at a wedding.
Yeah.
It's always the best source.
Exactly. In retrospect, it's comically stupid. But he's like, they've produced synthetic blood, and they're gonna make a fortune. It's like a penny stock. You're like, yeah, okay. But I'm young and dumb, and I was excited by his excitement, and I was like, okay, I'll put a little money into it. It wasn't like a ton of money, but it was like 10 grand or something. And he put a little, far less, but a little. And we both lost. The thing was like, I don't know if it was technically a fraud, but it definitely was overhyped.
Well, turns out synthetic blood's pretty hard.
Pretty difficult to
It wasn't what's her name.
No. Theranos, yeah.
Theranos, it sounds like that.
Like a precursor to that, right? So anyway, Dave came back to me in 2020, and he's like, dude, you got to bet Bitcoin.
He's horny for Bitcoin.
It's everywhere, right? Like all of a sudden the celebrities are doing it. It's because the pandemic hits, and, the reason we call the book Easy Money is like the Fed flooded the zone with money, right? To keep the economy from crashing. Because you can imagine a global pandemic, if people start, like obviously work is going to be hard for a lot of people. They're not going to be able to do it. So what happens if they don't work, they don't earn money, they don't spend money, they hoard, and then the whole thing takes on like, it can just nosedive really, really fast.
Yeah.
So in the macro, they did the right thing in terms of like keeping the economy from crashing. But the result, one of the weird spillover effects is like all these people, but particularly young dudes, had money to spend.
Yeah, they're getting like $2,000 checks or whatever.
Right, and they're sitting at home or in their apartments with their phones, and they have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And so why not gamble on crypto? And so crypto just goes nuts. And so Dave says, I'm going to, buy Bitcoin. I'm like, Dave, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. But what is it? And he's like, it's a cryptocurrency.
Why is it? This is in the doc. How has that been? How was that recorded, or was that reenacted?
The movie's called Everyone Is Lying for Money. I include myself. Yeah, we should talk about that at some point because I had a lot of fun. I fuck with the audience a lot.
Yeah, there's a docudrama element that you're going to have to tell a story.
Yes.
A personal story, not just a story of crypto.
Exactly. So we did. We
got it. I was just like, how did he have the foresight?
No, not that smart.
Okay.
I asked Dave, like, what is it? What's this? Because I'm not that tech savvy. I was like, I'm sure I'd heard the word cryptocurrency, but I had never spent 2 seconds thinking about it.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's cryptocurrency. I'm like, yeah, okay, what is that? I'm remembering my 20-year-old econ degree, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure one of the things so currency's money. One of the things you can do with money is buy stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Buy and sell stuff. Can you buy and sell stuff with this, Dave? And Dave is like, well, I'm putting money in and I'm hoping, it's going to go up and then I'm going to sell it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's an investment then.
Right.
And he's like, well, it's kind of both. I'm like,
how's that
not
work?
sure.
Because you can't invest in currency other than trying to trade on the margin of the value of the U.S. dollar versus the Swiss mark, right?
Exactly. You can trade currencies, of course.
You can't just buy a currency and the currency goes through the roof because that's just inflation.
Exactly.
So you're holding something that has the exact same value, even though the numbers went up.
And if the inflation was as steep as it is in crypto.
It would be World War III.
Yeah, it would be insane, right?
Yeah.
It would be the apocalypse. So I started looking into it, and I couldn't stop.
Well, I think what would be helpful too is to lay out the history that kind of leads, because there's another element involved that I think is really relevant and something I've been fascinated for 18 years, which is the 2008 meltdown. But before we go to that, there's the obvious explanation. It's just like this gets pitched to you. You're like, I don't know. I want to learn more. As I'm learning more, this doesn't seem legit. But on a personal level, how much do you identify with? I personally have a really huge radar for getting fucked.
Okay.
I'm just a skeptic. By nature, I'm very, very skeptical. And I could spin a story from my childhood of why I'm skeptical, but I don't know. But is it fair to say, are you skeptic? You've put a lot of energy into this.
Yeah. I would say I'm also a contrarian.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I'm always I'm kind of that obnoxious guy who's going to take the devil's devil's advocate position on a lot of stuff just to have the conversation, just intellectually.
I don't know what role if we were both at a dinner party, one of us has to pick a new instrument. Yeah. That's my role too.
Okay, yeah. It's not always good when two meet because then it's just like.
Yeah.
And I also have a hard time I just go deep. Like I'm not a good guy. I'm not really good at multitasking. I'm good at I'm going to do this right now.
Do you have an explanation for this? Do you think you're just genetically that way, or do you think there's some kind of...
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Situation?
I knew at the time, or I can now understand at the time, that because I didn't have anything else going on, this, when it presented itself, there was no one saying, oh, you can't spend 10 hours a day, reading economic history, but also studying the crypto markets, but also following the true crime of it all.
Yeah. There's no competing projects.
There's no competing project.
Yeah, but the irony is that's what they were doing too.
Exactly. I was doing the same thing they were, right? I mean, or effectively like a mirror image of what they were doing, just from the skeptic side. So I just kept looking at it more and more and more, and very quickly I was like, this shit really doesn't feel right. If it's not actually being used as currency, which it wasn't then, it isn't now, really, Bitcoin in particular. I couldn't go to my neighborhood deli in Brooklyn and buy a bagel with Bitcoin. Right? They look at me like I'm crazy. And I didn't know why originally, but as I looked into it, I found a lot of different reasons that we can go into. But whatever the reasons were, it wasn't being used that way. It was being used as an investment. And the retail public, the regular public, was being sold on this idea that everyone could get rich instantaneously for free off of this thing that very few people understood.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Or used. And then the celebrities got in. And I was pretty sure the celebrities didn't know what they were talking about either.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk trash about anyone specific
they're all
person.
Lovely. Almost everyone that got ensnared in it, I like.
Totally. And I don't want to be a jerk. What I did know, or what I felt pretty confident about, was, just from having been in Hollywood and having been in show business, I could have imagined how this went, which is all of a sudden the crypto exchanges where all these cryptos are actually traded. And again, they're traded. They're not you don't you're going on these weird places to buy and sell these speculative things. They're taking a cut of the action. They're taking a little transaction fee. They're making money hand over fist. They got a ton of money.
Yeah.
And they want to keep marketing it. And so I just imagined a scenario where, insert crypto exchange, they have a $100 million marketing budget, and they're going to the 3 agencies that are left or whatever it is. And they're like, hey,
we have $10 million.
$10 million.
Yeah.
And of a certain caliber actor, we will pay them $10 million.
For a one-day shoot.
So I get it.
It's perfect confluence of
exactly
opportunity. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with celebrities hawking like consumer goods, right? Like he's hawk soap or cars or
you
whatever.
Call out your wife; she's in a commercial.
Yeah, I made fun of Miranda because she did like a hair commercial, right? And like, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the reason celebrities are hired is because they have a relationship to the audience and people trust them. And if it sort of helps you like separate your product, there's a lot of different hairsprays you could have, but this one has Miranda Baccarat in it. So, buy it. Like, okay, fine. That's not like, that's, totally legitimate and fine. But this was a financial product. Right. This was an investment of some kind in something.
I didn't know this until the doc.
Yeah.
So as you point out in the doc, it is illegal to give financial advice.
Yes.
If you're not a
licensed financial advisor, which is a very obscure rule and isn't never enforced. And it's also sort of like, why do we even have that on some level? Because
you're telling your buddy about stocks.
Yeah. It's not like you're committing a crime. No one's going to come in and arrest you. But I think it is there. I mean, quite frankly, not that they could have anticipated this, but in a sense to deal with this issue, where someone with a lot of influence is kind of quasi giving you financial, like they're not telling you to invest in particular things, but they are like particular cryptos, generally speaking. Some of them did, like Kim Kardashian showed this thing called Ethereum Max, which is not Ethereum, it's another one. And did a post about it. Yeah. And it crashed. It went to all her followers and then it crashed fantastically. And the guy that I wrote the book with, Jacob Silverman, we wrote an article. Our first article was like criticizing celebrities and using this as an example. And she ultimately had to pay a fine to the Securities and Exchange Commission because you're not allowed to sell a specific financial product, right? Like I can't go on this podcast and pitch you on a specific stock that I think is great without disclosing how much do I own, what's my financial incentive, am I a paid spokesperson, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So this was like in that gray area, right? Yeah. We're like, well, maybe what a lot of them are doing isn't illegal, but to me it was incredibly distasteful. And dangerous. Dangerous for the public, of course, but also even for the celebrities themselves, because the short money, the easy money, if you will, is like, oh, you got...
Also, let's be honest, all these actors are paying 10% of this money to a group of people that are advising them, that are supposed to flesh out things. I mean, what else are you paying for? So if your agent brings you this product from this company, you assume they've done some due diligence on the company. They're there to protect your career. Sure. So it's like, there's a lot of also blame to spread around, probably.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely, for sure. I mean, that was my kind of sarcastic advice to the celebrities after the thing crashed and all these celebrities were sort of got a lot of egg on their face. I'm like, do the time-honored shit. Blame your agent.
That's
what they're there for. They're there to give you the advice, and then they give you the bad advice, and you just blame it.
That's what you've been giving them this money for.
Right, exactly. No, I love agents. All good.
I think we should do 5 minutes. I just want to first start by saying, and I only learned this through, I'm kind of obsessed with biographies from the end of the 1800s. So if you're reading Cornelius Vanderbilt or any of these, banks were failing every couple months. Huge institutions would fail. There'd be run-on banks. Everyone would be left holding the bag. We had a really, really shaky and untrustworthy banking system for 100 and some years until finally, again, this ugly word regulation. Regulation stopped that pandemic of bank collapses, which were happening all the time in like dominoes.
Also the creation of the central bank, or the Fed.
Right.
That was really the thing that helped, because otherwise you're dealing with all of these different smaller banks that were actually, it has a direct relation to crypto. They were issuing their own currencies during a thing called the wildcat banking era, which was in the mid-19th century. We were trying to expand west and provide credit for people, west being like Michigan at this point, And so the idea was a bank was allowed to issue its own notes, its own currency, if it held a certain amount of state bonds, and you were allowed one chapter of your bank, one physical location. And so sometimes people would set them up as far away from their depositors as they could, where the wildcats roamed. And once they had your money and you had to get there by horseback or whatever, they could just run off with it. And so there was a lot of fraud as well as instability.
And then also just what is the primary concept of a bank? Well, you're going to deposit your money, and I'm going to get, let's say, I have $100 million of people's money they've deposited, and now I'm going to make loans with that money that you've entrusted me with. And I'm going to charge a percentage on that, and that's how I'm going to make money. And part of the regulations, though, was like, well, how much money should they hold? right? Like, let's have a minimum amount percentage that the bank still has to withhold in case people want to withdraw their money. So this is where regulations come in. And then, yes, the central bank helps standardize all this stuff.
Yeah.
The federal bank. So that takes us up to 2008. And it's pretty darn stable as far as the world banking goes.
Right.
The U.S. has done a good job.
Since the Great Depression, it had been pretty, since we got out of that, because that was where securities laws come from, because there really weren't securities laws at the federal level prior to the 1930s. And securities laws are basically predicated on disclosure. Like, you need to know who you're giving your money to and what they're doing with the money. It's very broadly defined under American law because human beings are very inventive, and we're always coming up with new investments. A lot of them are legitimate, right? The vast majority of them legitimate, even if they don't work. They're like well-intentioned.
Yes.
But you need to have rules around it so that fraudsters can't exploit people, and that's what we realized, because in the 20s, you could do anything. You could corner the market.
Yeah. Well, insider trading wasn't even illegal.
No, it wasn't legal.
Yeah. So 2008, we get a new kind of version of it, right? So in 2008, it's all blamed on the subprime mortgage crisis. And if people remember, they were encouraging people to remortgage their house. They were encouraging people to take these no-interest loans. And it was blamed on that. But that's not the real story of the 2008 meltdown. I think the total of those toxic mortgages really amounted to like $68 billion or something. But what was more troubling and what caused the collapse is on top of the $68 billion, they built products that were anchored in those products that amounted to $1.2 trillion. So we had these things, credit default swaps. So I don't own this stock, but I can insure it. So I'm going to insure Lehman Brothers. I'm going to say, I'm going to take out say I have $10 million of value in there. I'm going to pay this little fee to insure that. And then in case it collapses, I'll get paid out $10 million on money I don't even have invested. And so Lehman Brothers, all these things, they were started on rumors, the collapse of them. And they were started on rumors by people who held enormous credit default swaps. So then we went, oh, wow, there's this other version of massive corruption that is just so high tech. The people that sold the products didn't really understand them in a lot of cases. When they were testifying, they're like, explain this. And like one person at the firm understands this product they invented, but they sold to a bazillion people. So again, we're in a situation in 2008 where the entire financial industry is going to collapse if the Fed doesn't step in and save these banks. We're not going to be able to come back from it. So it was the right decision. But the U.S. American, the average citizen, they're the ones that had the loan on the house. And their credit got fucked, and they got their house repossessed, and the government didn't come and bail them out.
They bailed out the banks, and they also, no one went to jail.
And no one went to jail.
That was a big
like one guy went to jail.
And people got huge bonuses in the same year.
Exactly.
So rightly so, Americans were disgusted by the financial system. So that's a really important piece of the story leading to crypto as well.
It's essential because in October of 2008, this thing called the Bitcoin White Paper is released on this cryptography mailing list, this small list of cryptographers that communicate with each other. And the White Paper just lays out the sort of intellectual foundation of Bitcoin, both the cryptography, but also the sort of like, the goals. What are we trying to do here? So it's the height of the subprime crisis. People are so angry at the banks, like even more than usual. And what the White Paper proposes, wouldn't it be cool if we could avoid these fuckers who have screwed us and just transact directly? Like, why can't I just like send something of value to Dax and he sends it back to me and like, sounds like a good idea, right?
And it's built on this new technology, blockchain.
Well, that's what's interesting is it's new-ish, but it's not really that new. Like blockchain goes back to 1991. There were these guys. We're going to get real dorky here. We can do this, right? Let's go dorky. So blockchain, I would say, started with Stuart Haber and Scott Stornetta at Bell Labs, building off the work of cryptographers like David Chaum, who I interviewed for the book. There had been this idea of like trying to do sort of encrypted money that would ultimately be very useful to be able to transact online. And so they were building off a thing called public key encryption, which basically allows us to buy stuff online without our credit cards being hacked, right? It sort of encrypts the data.
The data's got to travel from me and my computer to the bank in another
to the bank
location.
And then to the merchant. And then there needs to be a record of this, but we also don't want it to be public so that people can rip you off. So public key encryption is actually vital to our modern economy. But blockchain had been around since 1991, and the Bitcoin white paper didn't come out until 2008. So it had been sitting there for 17 years, and no one had really done that much with it. And even Bitcoin, when it came out, it was an obscure mailing list, like, very, very few people. These are like really hardcore nerdy cryptographers or whatever. I guess all cryptographers are probably nerds in some way. I'd say that with love. But so it's very obscure. And like, it really didn't have a use case. The problem was like, well, sure, I could, like, it's sort of like Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, I could give you a piece of paper that says it's $1, but like, why is it actually $1, right? Just because I say it is, like, what's giving it value, right? Which is sort of about what money is. But anyway, there was nothing that could be bought with this stuff called Bitcoin. There's a famous story of a guy buying 2 pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin, because
it's worth $9 billion.
Whatever, and that shows you how like worthless it was at the time. The first use case was crime. The first use case was buying drugs and other things that were illegal on the Silk Road, which was this dark web drug marketplace where you could also order assassination attempts and stuff like that. And, or the guy that ran it tried to like an FBI agent or something. And anyway, it got shut down by the feds. But crypto proved like, because what a blockchain is just a ledger of transactions. It's just a record that like this, they call them wallets. This wallet sent something of value to this other wallet. But it's pseudonymous. Like it obscures the identity of who's sending what to whom.
Yeah.
It's not anonymous. Like if you can figure out who owns what, then you have a whole record of every transaction they've ever made, potentially. But it is pseudonymous, and there's also other ways of obscuring it.
Yeah, I think we should attempt to make a really good faith argument for all the appeal of it when it first presented itself.
Right.
And that was one of them. So it was
Absolutely
pitched as completely anonymous.
It was pitched as anonymous, but it was also just like, to me, the crypto story is quite simple, in the sort of the broadest sense. It's like, it's 2 parts. The first is, do you hate our current system?
Right.
Every single person raises their hands, right? We all have different reasons, whatever. And the second part is Bitcoin fixes this. It's become a meme because it's like it was such a ubiquitous sort of argument. Right. And then it gets more nuanced, obviously, as people sort of articulate different reasons why they believe in it. But that really is like the essence of it to me.
And it's essential to remind ourselves, it was sold to us initially as a currency.
Yes, it was, and it did operate that way, but as a black market currency, right? As a currency for drugs. I mean, it was at the time. It was also like marijuana, and so just to be perfectly clear, I love marijuana.
Sure.
Like I have a medical card. Like I'm not knocking drugs.
Yeah.
You were also buying much harder drugs and doing stuff that was much worse than that, including like child sexual abuse material and like all sorts of really gnarly stuff. But that was the use case. It was crime, facilitating transactions for criminal activity. And then it kind of languished, like it was kind of just sitting there. Interestingly enough, like a person who came, we only found this out recently, but interestingly enough, after the Silk Road crashed, in 2015, Jeffrey Epstein stepped in and secretly funded what's called Bitcoin Core Development, which is the group of programmers that maintain Bitcoin's operating system. Yes, there are people behind this, like supposedly, computerized future. There's always people. Yeah. And he was secretly funding it through a thing called the MIT Media Lab because he was already a registered sex offender, and they didn't want that to be public.
Right.
So it's always had, crypto has always, I don't think that anyone who's being intellectually honest can claim that the crime is just some sort of like, it's only a tiny piece of it. It's never been that important to it. Like, I really don't think that's honest if you look at the history.
Of varying degrees of illegality. So another thing is like taxes. So yes, it would say child pornography, yes, these are bad people. But then the person who's already paid income tax and state tax, and they decide, I don't know why I have to pay another 50% tax to give this to my children. Yeah. I'd like to get this money somewhere else without the U.S. government.
Sure.
This could be a system by which I could do that and no one can see it or be involved in it.
Totally. And let me give you maybe even a more sort of morally compelling argument I was listening to. So what crypto can do is it can send something of value instantaneously anywhere in the world and avoid the regulated system, including the banks. Mm-hmm. And so I was hearing a story of a woman in Afghanistan who cannot get banking under the Taliban because she's a woman. And so she's running a business and she's paying her employees in crypto and she's running her business in crypto. I don't personally know this person. I don't, so this was secondhand, but I have heard similar stories.
Yeah.
So we can all agree that's a good thing, right? Like we like that. And we can get in, later we can critique, like, are those arguments true? And if Bitcoin's so volatile, then it's not stable. So does it actually work that way?
Right. But in premise.
The premise is, and so when I say crypto can only be used for speculation, which really is gambling, because you're not really speculating on an asset of any value, in my opinion. It's just lines of code. Speculation, gambling, and crime. It's when I say crime, I mean that literally in the sense that technically, although we morally agree with this woman in Afghanistan, she is violating her country's laws. We just don't like those laws because we're in another country and think that's really...
We have different values.
Right. But to accept that is good, we also have to accept the bad. If we're being intellectually honest, we can't just hand wave away. I mean, to give you a sense of the amount of crime in crypto, last year, a crypto company estimated $154 billion of criminal activity was facilitated via crypto. $154 billion is a lot of money, right? Especially for a market that...
It's a GDP of a lot of countries.
Yeah, and it says it's a trillions of dollar market, but I really don't think that's true in terms of the actual liquidity backing these speculative assets, right? So, it's a massive amount of crime. And to give you a sense of, like, the kinds of crime, it's like Russian oligarchs selling sanctioned oil to the Chinese in exchange for drones that they send to Ukraine. Right. It's like global criminal cartels. Because it's this, like, there's a Southeast Asian system of credit called Hawala, I think is what it's called. And basically it's like, if people don't have banks, how do they get something of value to someone else? They go to this local sort of community leader, and that person has a ledger, and they sort of send, they call their buddy in the neighboring village and, like, hey, mark this down. We have sent this to you. And it's basically like the system of trust, right? Which is what money is. Money is this made-up thing that is essentially trust. You don't have to trust the individual if it's scaled. Like, I could give you, Dax, $1. You take it from me not because you trust me. You trust that you can use it.
Government.
Yeah, implicitly the government. That it works, right? And so money does three things. It's a medium of exchange. You can use it to buy and sell stuff. It's a unit of account. You can run your books with it. And it's a store of value, meaning its value stays relatively consistent over time. And crypto can't fulfill, or Bitcoin couldn't fulfill any of those three, because you couldn't use it to buy and sell stuff, really, unless it was crime, to pay for stuff that was illegal. And you couldn't, it was so volatile that it really wasn't an effective unit of account and store of value. Now, all currencies are fallible, just like all social constructs, all humans. So none of these are perfect. Imagine a bagel costs $1 and then 10 and then 10 cents. And then, it's like, you just can't. What happens is people, if that were to be a currency, it would be unusable. People would just freeze and hoard, which would sort of plunge the economy into a recession, which is actually... Well, whatever. We're getting a little far afield, but it's actually what contributed to the Great Depression. We were on the gold standard. The amount of money that the government and other governments in Europe could hold was predicated on how much physical gold they had. Like $1 was equivalent to a certain amount of physical gold, and the idea was to give it tangibility, right? Like, it's
linked to something real,
right? But the problem is that when there's a crisis, when there's a collapse, like there was during the Great Depression when the stock market collapsed and countries started raising tariffs against each other and the economies just started folding inward, because you couldn't expand the money supply, because you couldn't do what we did during the pandemic and just print more money.
You can't print more gold.
Exactly. Yeah. It just crashed.
And it makes a finite economy in a sense. It can't grow beyond the value of the gold that it's backed by. So it's also a very limiting concept for money.
It is. And there's a great book called Lords of Finance by Liaquat Ahamed that talks about the central bankers of the 1930s, and their adherence to the gold standard really did contribute significantly to how bad it got. Like, they could have, it was going to be bad, but they really could have, if they had known better, at the time, they could have, staved off the worst of it. And that was really one of the takeaways from economists like John Maynard Keynes, that why are we sticking to this thing? So Keynes and others critiqued this in the sense of, like, well, why? I know we say we want it to be based on something, quote unquote, real, but let's think about that for a second. Why is gold valuable?
Yes.
It's not the most scarce mineral. You can't eat it. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
And limited.
And in limited, exactly, limited to a finite. It is something that has been historically used as value for thousands of years. So if money is trust, it's a social construct, just like government or religion. They're only as strong as the social consensus that underlies them. We have a playful sequence at the beginning of the film, this graphic sequence, just showing you very quickly all of the different things that have been used as money over the years. You know, feathers and different coins and things like that. Okay, now we have to go back to where we were before.
So this is how it was sold to us, and it is an appealing thing for these several reasons, I think. And I think we understand. Now, the one last thing I think we need to explain before we get into your uncovering of a lot of things. I think people need to just know very basically a stock is. So there's a company, I believe in it. I think they're going to do great and they're going to grow. And I buy a fraction of that company. That's a security in that company, right? And I buy it at $100. And for it to go up, someone has to buy it ultimately off of me for $110 or $120. And that's how the value of the stock's going up. But again, back to the trust thing, it's like it is anchored to some performance of that company. Whether they're solvent or not. It's anchored to reality in some capacity.
They're producing a good or providing a service.
Yes, and it's either they're either growing or shrinking, and so the stock generally reflects that. There's been these anomalies like Enron and whatnot, but in general, that's just the concept. So if you want to invest in a speculative asset, be it a share in a company, in theory, that company's going to determine, its performance is going to determine the value of that stock. All right, so I just think it's
important to understand that, and then it's also important to look at crypto and go, well, if you're investing, what are you investing in? Because it's just lines of code, and lines of code could be valuable if they correlated with a real-world asset, right? Google's lines of code are very important to run Google's
because they're selling advertising on the back of that code.
Right? There's ways of monetizing it. But with crypto, because it's just the code, what are you investing in? I would argue that you're sort of investing in its utility as a criminal, as a vehicle for a crime, not purposely necessarily, but I'm just saying that's one of the things it's used for. And you're investing in the story of it. You're investing in the idea that other people give it value.
Yes.
Which in economics is dangerously close to what we call greater fool theory. Greater fool theory is when a speculative asset rises so far beyond any real-world use it could have, any real-world value, that really its price is determined by your ability to buy it and sell it to a fool greater than yourself. Which is a really fun game until tops out and you're the biggest idiot holding the bag. If it's an investment but there's no product really.
Or service.
I don't even get how it works even in crime. Like, why would I don't get it.
Well, because I'm a cartel boss in Colombia, and I'm getting all of this cash, and I can't use this cash, but I can convert this cash into crypto, and then there is an apartment salesman in Russia who's willing to sell me a very nice apartment with this crypto exchange. So I have now just converted this cash that I can't use into an apartment.
You're scary good at this, Dax. That's exactly right.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Why would the apartment guy want it when he then can't use it to buy anything
Yes, it does have to cash out on the other end, usually, although if you follow that Southeast Asian Hawala example, he could then send it somewhere else and get something else that he wants.
I know, but at some point, someone's like, I want money.
Yes. That's the best part.
Yes.
The thing that it promised to do, it actually doesn't even do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just say, did you watch that? It's like, I think on Netflix it was called like The Biggest Heist of All Time, and it was this couple, this very bizarre couple that had successfully stolen what in now currency, or the current value of Bitcoin is in the $30 billion.
Right.
The problem is they're sitting there with, at the time, $8 billion in Bitcoin. They can't do anything with it because ultimately in this country, to convert it into an apartment or a car or anything else, you are going to have to go on record and break your anonymity and convert it to that thing. So they were sitting there with $8 billion that was completely fucking useless.
Totally.
They were not living like billionaires.
No.
So it's not even the thing that was promised to be.
Yeah, she was like financing the world's shittiest rap videos, right? Wasn't she?
Yes.
She was wild.
What was the rap
weird.
name?
I forget.
Something with a cat, maybe? She was
Something
a cat.
like that.
So weird.
It was so
Yeah,
fantastic.
they were both something else.
But that's such a vivid illustration of what you're talking about, right? It's like the only place you can really like convert this into real money is in some shady situation in some other country where you're dealing with a dirty bank or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really this like Hawala system of like black market money that's circulating all over the globe, right?
Corrupt governments, corrupt politicians.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to your friend Dave, and then you getting really curious about Bitcoin and wanting to learn a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the kind of the doc starts.
Well, it starts with a book. For some reason, I thought I should write a book. I don't know why it didn't occur to me. It's kind of funny in retrospect, like why I didn't think to make a movie. But I thought I should write a book. I didn't know how to write a book. I had taken an edible, and I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book. There's a lot of people who have this experience. And I woke up the next morning. I was like, fuck, I don't know how to write a book. You know, I took another edible. I was like, oh, just like find someone else who knows how to write. Like, we'll write it together. A journalist, Jacob Silverman, had written an article for Slate that the headline is, "Even Donald Trump knows Bitcoin is a scam." Because Donald Trump, as recently as 2021, was calling Bitcoin a scam, which is interesting now. We can talk about that later. But I thought that was funny. He was a tech sort of critic for Slate and other places, and he just had a good way about him online anyway. Followed him on Twitter. He followed me back. I invited him to drinks at a bar in Brooklyn, and I pitched him on this crazy idea of like, yes, crypto is going to the moon right now. This is like 2021, but I think it's going to crash. And I have all these reasons and all these, I kind of like hit him with probably way too much of my opinion on it. But he happened to be going on paternity leave. And so he had a window and he was like, okay, let's try it. So we started writing articles. The first one was criticizing celebrities and Slate, and we wrote different articles for different places like the Washington Post and the Intercept and places like that. And we were doing it to prove to do our research, but also to prove our bona fides to sell a book. We sold a book proposal, and we went out in 2022 to actually go into the real world. Again, we're getting out of the pandemic and back into like IRL. And we were going to South by Southwest in Austin and to give like a talk. And I was like, I should just turn a camera on, just like, it's not that expensive. I'll just like ask my agent, find me some guy with a camera and a sound pack. And like, the worst is I'm out $750 or whatever.
Yeah.
And the first day we show up at South by, we're on the floor of the convention center, and I see a booth for this company called Celsius, which is super sketchy already because it's like, give us your crypto, we'll give you this return on your crypto. This really high rate of return. It's like 15% or something. And that's like literally the definition of a Ponzi scheme. It's like, or one of the definitions of a Ponzi scheme, or one of the tells of a Ponzi scheme. And yet they were being sued by the Texas securities regulator at that time, but it hadn't been adjudicated yet. So they still could technically sell their customers on it. And I look at the booth and I'm just like, and then I look over the other side of the room and there's the CEO, right? Just like sitting.
What's his name?
Alex Mashensky.
Alex Mashensky.
He's sitting with these other guys. And then I'm like, well, I gotta do this, right?
These guys are just hanging on a couch in this convention. Like the whole thing looks like you've walked into a Boost Mobile store here in East LA or something.
The largest Boost Mobile store ever. But
yeah. So Celsius was presenting itself as a bank, even though it said explicitly on their website they were not a bank.
Yes.
But it was basically
in very small font.
Yeah, give us your money like a bank, and we're going to give you a 15% return. Yeah. Which again, and you point blank asked the guy, so how are you making money?
Mm-hmm. And he can't answer me.
No, he can't.
Because he's like, we're the opposite of bank. We're about the community. He's a Ukrainian. I can't do his accent, but he's like, we're about the. Oh, I am going to do it anyway. It's gonna be bad. Apologies to any Ukrainian friends. I'm a big pro-Ukrainian generally, but this guy was such a character. He's like, we're a bank, but we were better than a bank because we give the money back to the. And I'm like, well, then how do you make money? And he just wouldn't answer. No
answer for that.
Yeah, and then. I don't know. It was a wild interview. That was our first day of filming. Like, he said stuff like, the camera cut out, but we have the audio. It's in the movie. I asked him, like, how much real money is in crypto, right?
Yeah.
He's like 10, 15%. The rest is speculation.
So I think you need to explain that part. Like, how there could be real money or not real money in this thing.
Yeah, that means that basically, because people are doing things like borrow money to bet on crypto, the crypto exchanges would give people like 125 to 1 leverage. So they would give you like $125 of like poker chips to play with for every $1 actual dollar that you put, which sounds awesome, right? Like, oh, wow, fantastic. Of course, it really means the poker chips aren't actually worth that much. Yeah. And when it's going up, you're having a great time. But when it goes down, they just liquidate you. There's no margin call. Margin call is when like your finances aren't looking that great on your investments or whatever, and the bank calls you or the investment firm is like, hey, you need to put more money in because otherwise you're gonna be zeroed out. They don't even do that. You're done. Yeah. So it's really a vehicle for this crazy gambling. And the hardcore crypto people, or a segment of them, call themselves Degens, which stands for degenerate gamblers.
Okay.
So just so you know.
They're owning it. Yeah.
They're owning it. Yeah. Ooh is right, too, by the way. Yeah.
But I kind of admire it more.
I guess. It's a very male thing, I will say. I'm a degen. You're like, okay.
Sounds like incel a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sounds like there might be some crossover.
He said some crazy stuff. Like, he said things like, I asked him about all the fraud in crypto, and he goes, you leave money on the street, you expect it to be there when you get back? Like, as though and I'm like, so it's their fault? So it's like the investor's fault for like just not, it's like, well, and then the marketing guy's like on the other side, and he's like, no, don't say that.
You're also asking him if he's being investigated for any criminal activity or if there's any kind of legal cases.
Legal proceedings.
Yeah,
and he said no.
Zero.
That's just.
And there were multiple at that time.
In fact, I think they'd already been shut out of New Jersey. I think the New Jersey securities regulator had already shut them down over there. But anyway, it was just, it was just nonsense, right? And so that's the first day. I'm like, well, I got to keep going.
Yeah.
And it got weirder from there, actually.
Yes. So the part that was a revelation to me, you interview this crypto skeptic. He remains anonymous throughout this. If I sell my share of Amazon, someone has bought the Amazon at a certain price, and then we all kind of know what the value of that stock is because someone just was willing to pay that amount. Mm-hmm. But then it was explained to you that some 95% of the trades in the crypto world are someone with two accounts that's trading with themselves.
Yeah.
So they bought $100 worth of crypto. They buy it for themselves for $200, which they didn't lose any money because they gave themselves the $200. Yep. Now it has the appearance of being worth $200, and then they sell it for $400. That blew my mind, that 95% of the trades are these bullshit trades.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the percentage, that is his.
That's his claim.
So I'm not making that claim.
But just to notion that's even an option to do.
But it is a lot. It's especially a lot, I would say, on the overseas exchanges. And we should talk about that for a minute. Okay. Because, especially at the time before they collapsed, when you were buying crypto on an exchange like FTX, what you were actually doing is sending your money to the Bahamas, because that's where FTX is based and banked.
And they told you had X amount of Bitcoin.
Right. And I think just like the sort of trouble with that should be obvious, right? Like then you're sort of subject to Bahamian securities regulation, I guess, or Bahamian banking laws, which may not be quite as tight as American. Yeah. But what's funny about it to me is that this has such a direct overlap with online poker. You were a similar age. You remember in the mid-aughts, all of a sudden you could gamble with real money online.
Yeah, right.
It was like Full Tilt and Ultimate Bet and things like that. And Dave was really into this, right? My buddy Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, shocking. And I loved poker. I was living up in Nichols Canyon. I was single. I had an actual poker table in my house. I was that guy. Yeah. But like I loved it. It was fun. And we'd hang with buddies and drink a beer and, just take each other's money. But I never messed with online poker. And I remember asking Dave, like, well, so you're gambling with real money. Where are you sending the money?
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know. It's the same places. They were based on the same Caribbean countries that the crypto guys were running their companies out of, which is such a vivid illustration of what we're talking about to the retail public. This is gambling.
Sports betting now, too. Is it also those same places?
No, those are American companies,
okay.
I would say. I think the difference with sports betting is it's like they can't manipulate the outcome. Well, I mean, I guess the players could.
That's
but
starting to happen.
Well, that's one of the problems with making this gambling so ubiquitous. Is like it just compromises everybody, including the leagues. I would say the leagues are in on it now.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It's all sponsored by.
We have Michael Lewis on to talk about his book or his podcast on this.
Oh, interesting.
This is another terrible. And again, it's preying on, this is where I get pretty sympathetic to these people. It's preying on a lot of young men that are increasingly not going to college. There's decreasing amount of jobs in their town.
Yep.
There are less and less options for young men, and they're just like, oh, well, then what am I going to do? Oh, I guess I'm going to gamble or I'm going to get rich on crypto. It's like, it's filling a void of opportunity.
Yeah, and to give you a sense of like how strong it is in the young men, like 42% of men 18 to 29 have dabbled in crypto, have traded crypto. 42%, like almost half. That's a lot of young dudes, right? And look, most guys are just messing around. They're just messing around with a little bit of money, and I never go offer financial advice, but if you're messing around with money you can afford to lose, then like that is a different story in terms of your personal, like, how I feel about you in terms of, I'm not worried about you if you can afford to lose. The thing I asked is like, just imagine you lost whatever you put in, like all of it, I mean, instantaneously. Yeah. Would it affect your life?
Right.
Right? I think it's worth considering the arguments about the criminal activity, because even though you aren't financing it, the real money you're putting into it is giving it value so that it has value for the criminals.
I'm more mad at these, like, the Wall Street dudes who have drank the Kool-Aid, the institutional banks that have drank it. I'm actually more.
Me too. I'm mad at them too.
Like, you're already this huge institution that's worth all this money, and you gotta,
Yeah, and let's talk about that argument for a minute, because like the crypto guys are now like, oh, I guess you know more than all the big banks, Yeah. And it's like, first of all, that's deeply ironic. If you were set up in reaction to the banks and the subprime crisis, and now you're like crowing about how the banks are on your side, but it's also wrong. Because the banks aren't in it taking a directional bet on whether crypto is going up or down. They're just facilitating the game. They're just the house in Vegas, like letting you gamble with your money and taking the rake, taking a tiny piece of the volume. Like there's this thing called ETFs, exchange traded funds. They're sort of like mutual funds where like put money into it, and whatever money you put in represents a fractional share of the Bitcoin. And so what BlackRock, which has the biggest Bitcoin ETF, you put money into the BlackRock ETF, they just go to like Coinbase, this crypto exchange, and are like, hey, hold this amount of Bitcoin for this customer. BlackRock never even touches the Bitcoin. Like all they're doing is like, you know what I mean?
Also, do you think you know more than we've had two guests with books on Bankman, and I think it was Peter Thiel. Don't assume me if it wasn't him, but I think it was him who said like, yeah, I sat with him and I funded FTX. I was an investor, and I'd do it again. Because the model of VC is like, I'm going to lose on a bunch of these, but the payoff's going to be so big. And his thing was so compelling. And guess what? It was just as compelling as the ones that work. So it's like, we're also in this abstract system where it's there's a model where 95% of things are expected to fail, and that's tolerable. So it's like, you could say, oh, you know more than that person. But it's like, in a sense, I'm playing a different game than that person. And so are you. So you can't think that way.
And I am looking at it at a different level, or certainly a different angle, which is like, it's not just about who wins and loses in this thing, although we should talk about how many people win and how many people lose. So economically, if these things are more just gambling devices than actual investments in things that exist in the real world, what are they? They're zero-sum games, which is like poker, right? Like, let's say we all sit at a table in Vegas playing poker. You might win a hand, you might win a hand, I might win a hand, but if you win, it's coming out of our pockets. If you win, it's coming, there's no value creation. We're playing a game where maybe it's entertainment, that's great, and we get some free drinks, but like, meanwhile, as we play the game, the house is taking the rake. The house takes a tiny bit of money to allow the game to go so they can pay the dealer. And so, can you win in Vegas? Of course you can win in Vegas.
Yeah.
But if you play long enough in Vegas, on average, you're losing.
Yes.
Because how else do they keep the lights on in the casino, right?
How they build pyramids. Yeah.
Right. And so crypto speculation is like, well, it's like Vegas without the drinks, the dinner, or the show. Like, there's no entertainment value, I would argue, personally. But also, you're playing in an unlicensed, unregulated casino. Or maybe if it's an American exchange, maybe I guess it's loosely or somewhat regulated. But like, you can also do this thing where you win. You win all these poker chips, and you go to the teller to cash out, and the teller window's closed. Like, they're not going to cash you out. So, it's more like Vegas in the 50s when the mafia ran it, you win and then you end up in the desert, 6 feet under, right?
You won too much, so you lost big time.
Exactly.
There's another part I'll just add of my sympathy to it is like, there's not only the lack of opportunity and just kind of this really troubled group of young men right now. Also, you're not acknowledging that it's an instant community for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Because once you get into Bitcoin, you talk about it all the time, and you go to chat rooms and you watch the videos of the people that are super into it. So it is a turnkey community.
Right.
And a lot of lonely dudes are, in need of that desperately. So that's another sad aspect. It's an identity. So many people make it their identity. They're never sell.
What's so sort of toxic about it is it's so easy to fake real communities online. I talked to the victims of Celsius and I bond with them, but I asked them, because Celsius said, we're like a community bank, but they weren't a bank. They existed only online. There were no physical chapters of Celsius, right? And they talked about, we do it for the people, bank for the people or something like that. We do it for the community. That's what Alex McKenzie kept talking about. Do it for the community. Do it for the community. But I asked them after they lost all this money. So Celsius collapsed. Alex McKenzie went to jail. He had made tens of millions of dollars off of these people. And I asked him, do you think the Celsius, and now, do you think the Celsius community was like a real thing? They were all like, no, it was a lie, right? They still believed in crypto, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Right. So I think when you're running a con, when you're running a fraud, it's way easier to do that online than it is in real life.
Yeah.
Right?
It's hard to lie to people's faces.
Well, you can't fake buildings, right?
Yeah.
And actual people.
Like the difference between had I gone to Celsius's website back then and looked how professional it looked and smart versus when I saw you talking to that guy, my first thought was like, you wouldn't trust this guy to sell you a fucking watch. He's so obviously a fucking crook.
Exactly. He's a used car salesman all over the place.
Yes.
And I asked one of the guys who had lost money in it, and he's like, he made that point. He's like, he's probably, it's just easier to fake it online. If I had ever met this dude, I would never, but he never did.
Yeah.
And all they were doing is doing slickly produced videos, talking about how everyone's going to make money, and they were so great, and they cared about the community. And so that's just an observation about how frauds work, which I think is really fascinating and kind of dark.
Yeah, just preying on the vulnerable.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about going to El Salvador. Just tell quickly the story of El Salvador, because I think it's really heartbreaking. That's like, you can see how, if you don't feel bad for tech bros, which I can understand.
Exactly.
But you might feel bad for them.
Yeah. We went to El Salvador, and the reason we went to El Salvador, Jacob Silverman and I had a film crew down there. We went there because El Salvador was the only country in the world that was trying to use Bitcoin as real money. A very sort of huge marketing I don't want to say stunt, but it was really a national experiment in like, can Bitcoin work as money?
Almost as their national currency. It looked like that's where it was going to be heading.
Parallel to the dollar. They were already dollarized, and the economy El Salvador is a very poor country. Mm-hmm. The average Salvadoran makes about $400 a month. And the foundation of El Salvador's economy, a quarter of the economy, is remittances, is the money that the 2 to 3 million people of Salvadoran descent who live here send home to their friends and family. That's really like how the economy works. And so they would use things like Western Union and MoneyGram in order to send money home. The pitch from this guy Bukele, who now American audiences are familiar with for a different reason, but this guy Bukele came in, he was a former marketing guy, and he had the idea that, well, look, if we can build a system on top of Bitcoin, a national system, and people can use crypto to send money home and avoid the fees that Western Union and MoneyGram charge, because it could be like, 5 or 10% or something like that. And we just take a tiny piece, like we take a much smaller percentage to facilitate it, then it's a win-win, right? Yeah. Like the people win, we win, government raises a little money.
Sounds great.
So they did this big system.
And you got a wacky president in the mix. That's important. You're charismatic.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
A little Trumpy. Son of a rich guy.
Tweeting all the time and saying like not what you would think of as a leader of a country. Tweets.
Bragging about buying Bitcoin while seated on the toilet.
Yeah.
Like
making videos of himself looking cool.
Yeah, referred to himself at one point on his Twitter handle as the world's coolest dictator.
Yeah.
Which you're like...
That's who you want as your president.
Yeah. It was very weird. So anyway, with much fanfare, they announced that like Bitcoin was going to be currency. They had this system called Chivo. Chivo means cool, which to me is so lame that they like named their system.
You can't call something cool.
Don't call something cool. Such a rookie government move. Bad move on a marketing guy. Anyway, they gave everybody like $30 of Bitcoin, right? Every Salvadoran citizen to like encourage it. As a giveaway. Yeah. Okay. All you had to enter was your national ID number, which is sort of like your social security number. But the system was terrible. People like had their ID number stolen. and you had to take a picture to get the money, and people would like put their pets up to the camera to like, so it was just a mess. So a lot of people didn't get that money. But not only that, on the day that it came into effect, the price of crypto crashed fantastically, like 50,000 to 40,000 in the span of a few minutes or a few hours or something like that, which is really interesting. Because if you think of the whole thing as a lot of like insider trading, that might be front running, right? Like you can see this big front running, meaning like, you see that this big publicity event is happening. People are expecting the price to go up. Mm-hmm. That's a really good time to sell.
To sell off.
Right? Mm-hmm. As it goes up, you sell. Uh-huh. Anyway, and you could be shorting at the same time and making a ton of money. Anyway, I have no evidence that that's true, but it is weird that it crashed so quickly. That failed, but Bukele was undeterred. He was like, we're going to build a Bitcoin city in eastern El Salvador. We're going to mine Bitcoin from a volcano, and we're going to build a city off of the proceeds. And there was like a model of this golden city, very Gaddafi-esque. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go check it out. So we drove 100 miles east, tiny little fishing village, super remote. I mean, El Salvador itself is San Salvador is a somewhat big city, but it's a very small country. They are also a net importer of electricity. Like they don't produce enough electricity for their own country already. Yeah. So this was not financially feasible, but it was a marketing ploy, I think. Anyway, they're going to build a city. They're going to build an airport to service the city. So I go out there. There's nothing going on. But what they're doing is they're displacing this whole community in order to build this airport for the city that's never going to exist. It still doesn't exist to this day, even in any form. But they wanted to build an airport, which I don't know what that's about exactly, because I already have an international airport 100 miles away. So I will say I don't know if this is related, but there's a lot of drug smuggling and money laundering in Central and South America. Anyway, they displaced this whole community. So I'm talking to this fisherman named Wilfredo, who doesn't know Bitcoin. Like the guy fishes for a living. Yeah. And he's like, what is going on? What is going on in this world where I am just me and this whole community? And the government like bought up their land for a fraction of what it was worth. Bukele controls the judiciary, so there wasn't any real ability to appeal this thing. And it was just sad, it was really sad.
And what's really telling is you're moving around the city and you are trying to buy things actively with Bitcoin. Yeah. You're going to all these different vendors.
That's the other thing.
That's really telling.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, if it's a currency, and this country's actually adopted it, if there's any place you could use it as a currency, it would be this place. Yeah. And you're just not one place you can find that. No, I went to the
biggest market in San Salvador, the capital, and it's funny. I'm just going through the market asking to pay for things in Bitcoin. Everything is cash there. Everything's cash dollars. And they're just looking at me like I'm the stupidest gringo that ever has walked.
It's very obvious it's not Bitcoin. Oh, back to the Celsius thing. When you go to the 2022 Expo put on by, I forget what company at that point.
Right. Bitcoin convention, right.
You can't buy anything at the convention with Bitcoin.
Yeah. I'm trying to buy a beer in Bitcoin and
you're supposed to, and then they go, no, it'll work. It'll take. They got to process it. And he's like, how long? He's like, 20 minutes. So think of a currency where you got to wait 20 minutes for it to be
to get a beer.
Yeah.
So it's not a currency.
No, it really isn't. And the remittance thing didn't come to fruition either. Just to finish that, the government's own figures said less than 2% of people were using it to send money overseas. It's now less than 1%. It's a failure. The government has actually abandoned the whole crypto project. Okay. Like to get a loan from the IMF, they basically had to say like, no, we're not actually even doing the Bitcoin thing anymore. Well, the takeaway from me is it's very sad that this whole community is displaced. Well, there's also a funny aspect. The only person who was living in Bitcoin City was this gringo named Corbin. This white dude from Illinois who works construction and was like, just moved down there and like
want to be the first citizen of
Bitcoin City.
Yeah.
This imaginary city and living in a cinder block house on the beach. And yeah. And it was interesting to talk to him because I asked him how much Bitcoin he had. He didn't want to tell me. I respect that. But I was like, clearly it was important to him. Like it was a meaningful amount of money. Otherwise, why would he have done this incredibly drastic thing? I was like, why don't you sell it? Sell it and like build a house that isn't made out of cinder blocks or buy a motorcycle or I don't know. Yeah. And it was very clear he was never going to sell this.
Yeah, it's kind of, it takes on a religious quality to it.
Exactly. So that really illustrated a lot. It was like both the cult of it, the marketing of it, the lack of substance of it in basically every level. So yeah, El Salvador is really sort of important to the story. What's wild about it is it was always going to be a part of the movie because I was like, I loved that country and I was really sort of charmed by the people and it's hard to make things tangible in crypto. It's like, well, this is a tangible thing that's happened. But I was like, no one's ever going to care about El Salvador, right? Americans, I couldn't have found it on a map beforehand, right? Yeah. And then Trump sends, illegal immigrants or legal immigrants, sends people to that prison with Bukele.
Yeah,
it's
true, yeah.
Yeah, it's really wild to watch it now. It's like, anyway.
You also get a sit down with Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yeah.
And I think he thinks he's coming to meet the dude from the aforementioned show. It's not to be mentioned. And you start hitting him with some pretty hard questions. It's funny. This was the point where my 13-year-old, because he's so nervous and he's so autistic, that she's feeling bad for him. Mm-hmm. And I had to I could see her getting feeling more and more bad for this guy. And I said, "Oh, honey, he stole billions from people. This is you don't need to feel bad for this guy.
Yeah, there is a temptation. Even I have felt that temptation, to be honest with you. I didn't know what exactly he was doing, but I had a sense that whatever he was doing was not good.
Yes.
And I also wanted him to explain basic things. He was the head of, at the time, he was the king of crypto, right? The market was crashing, but he was supposedly this boy genius who'd figured it all out. And he was supposedly going to bail all these companies out. He was called the J.P. Morgan of crypto, which is a reference to when J.P. Morgan had to bail out all of these banks, rich people, get his rich friends to keep the economy from crashing prior to when we had a central bank. Anyway, he was the king of the world, And then you sat with him, and you'll see it in the film, I just ask him basic questions, what does it do? What does it do that's good for the world? And he says remittances. And I just been to El Salvador.
Yeah.
I'm like, bullshit, dude, bullshit. Yeah. And then he goes, well, it's not working now, but in the future.
It's going to. And you go, and it doesn't function as a currency.
No.
And he's like, yeah, well, now it doesn't, but it will.
It will in the future. Yeah. So one of the interesting things about Bitcoin is that it can't function as a currency because of the technology. So the technology, one reason why it doesn't work so well is it can only handle 5 to 7 transactions a second, whereas Visa can do 24,000. So it just can't scale as a payments method. Other blockchains are faster, but they're not limited in supply, right? Like Bitcoin is, the 21 million Bitcoin that can be mined. And also they're issued by, individuals and companies, and there's a lot of fraud and things that can go wrong there. So really Bitcoin, even Sam actually, I asked Sam, can Bitcoin ever work as a payments method? He's like, no. So I think that argument that Bitcoin even is a money, in any scalable global way, is kind of falling away. You don't see people arguing for that anymore. But I just thought that's worth mentioning because people, it's really important to understand the tech sucks.
I just want you to hit me with the real world consequences, because all we ever hear is the person who bought it at $1,000 and 100x, or that's the person screaming from the rooftops about it, of course.
Totally.
What's the real fallout of it, or what's the
real fallout?
Are they like MLMs? What percentage makes money?
Yeah. So multi-level marketing scheme, pyramid scheme. Imagine the top is the original investor, the original person who created it or whatever, and then as you go down, it's the next adopter. In an MLM, 99% of the people lose, 90+% of the people lose, because it's really just about getting something for free or very cheap, and then selling it to someone for more.
And it relies on new recruits. The second there's no more new recruits, the money can't flow up and the entire thing collapses.
Exactly. And so one of the strongest psychological arguments that Bitcoiners have is you'll say all these facts that we've been talking about, and they go, yeah, but I bet you wish you had bought in early.
Yeah, they love that.
And it's really effective because it's well, you can't, yes, of course, but if I'm describing it as a Ponzi scheme and a multi-level marketing scheme, and your retort is, well, if you bought in early.
If you're at the top
it's
of it.
Dude, that's literally how Ponzi schemes and multi-level marketing schemes work. That's not a refutation of my argument. That's just a psychological trick, right? Trying to give you FOMO, right? Trying to make you wish that you had bought in early.
And yes, I can wish I had that money
Right.
It doesn't mean I think the thing is real.
Right, exactly.
Or good for the world.
Or good for the world.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think the consequences are a lot. There's it's not only all the people that have lost money, which is, tens of millions of people have lost. A lot of them lost money they were just gambling with and they're fine, but some people lost everything, right? I mean, I talked to people in Celsius who were definitely affected materially by that loss.
Yeah, I feel terrible for that guy in the dock.
Me too,
His
man.
wife's disappointed in him.
His daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm a dad, and he feels like he let her down. I'm like, oh fuck, man.
Yeah.
But it's not just that now, because it's come back in such a big way, and it's integrating itself into our banking system to a certain degree.
And we have a president who believes it should be incorporated in our own holdings as a country.
Yes, my worry is, what if there's another downturn, and people try to sell off this crypto? They can't because there's too many sellers and not enough buyers. And it crashes, and it also infects the banking system, which it almost did in 2023, just months after I testified to the Senate. And I'm telling them, guys, this is bad. If we get this into our banking system, it's going to be bad. Yeah. 3 months later, 3 banks fail, and they're all tied to crypto.
And then the U.S. government had to bail them out. Yes. And the whole point was a fuck you to the U.S. government to not be regulated. Everyone just wants more regulation once they hold it.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to cash out. And, the only way it works is if you make it just what the U.S. dollar was.
Yeah. Right.
And so it defeats the entire premise initially pitched.
Yeah.
So 3 banks collapse.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. And so if the subprime mortgage collapse was on the back of $78 billion or whatever that number was, somewhere in there, what is the total value right now of crypto?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than that, probably.
$1 trillion.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the actual liquidity. So there's sort of that side of it in terms of the speculative stuff, but there's also just these stable coins, these cryptocurrencies that are pegged 1-to-1 to real U.S. dollars, and they're even scarier to me than the other stuff, because the other stuff is gambling, but that is basically a black market dollar. So the price doesn't go up and down. It's always
whatever the U.S. dollar is.
Exactly. But it's not backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. It's not issued by the government.
Yeah, you can't call the FBI if it disappears.
Right. And so it's used for all of this crime. A lot of the crime is used for the stable coins, because the criminals don't want the volatility of the other cryptos, right? If they could avoid that, that would be way better.
Yeah.
Because sure, the price could go up, it could also go down. Yeah. You'd rather it just stayed stable. So it's just this incredible, most of that $154 billion that I'm talking about, most of that of criminal activity last year was stablecoins.
I want to say, for anyone listening who's it might sound too technical, the doc, Everyone Is Lying to You for Money, is super duper fun and very, very well and entertainingly directed. But I was curious, again, I said at the beginning, I have treaded lightly on it because I know it's a religion for some sect of people. And I want to know how scared you feel about being the most vocal and popular whistleblower.
Who's been on the Unnamed show before.
Yeah. What has been the fallout of you going on many very big shows and call sounding the alarm on this? What kind of reaction have you received? I mean, a lot of it's in the doc. But.
Yeah, I mean, you get a ton of online hate, obviously. I'm not on X anymore, which is really nice. I loved Twitter. I met Jacob Silverman on Twitter. It's such a good thing for a journalist, and you got all this news. But then Elon took it over, and all of a sudden I got hacked on Twitter, and I can't get into my account. So my account sits there, but I haven't posted in years. Yeah, I kept getting hacked into from places like Russia.
Oh.
Which is interesting.
Okay.
This was after I was outspoken in crypto, so it makes me a little whatever. But I'm really grateful, actually, because now that I'm not on it, I don't see that stuff.
Yeah.
And it seems to have gotten worse over there in the last couple of years. And I'm on the other social medias, or at least some of them, and it's a way better experience. But yeah, so it's been online vitriol. What's interesting is that in person, I've had very few really gnarly interactions. I've had a lot of what you see in the movie, goofy interactions, or people who are just kind of odd and or scammers. But yeah, I mean, in terms of my security, I was really worried about it when I went down the rabbit hole before I started this.
Yeah.
Because I saw how much criminal activity.
And if I'm a guy that has $100 million in holding in this quote asset, and I can point to a guy who made that asset depreciate like a rock.
Although I haven't exactly succeeded in that. Hopefully I'm not singled out. I guess I'll say I've made friends and I know people now who I think if someone were foolish enough to do something to me, I think there would be hell to pay, I guess is my hope.
So you're not too scared. It's a ballsy doc, let's just say that.
Thanks,
There's
man.
any number
that.
of docs you could have made, and to me this one does seem pretty risk heavy.
Definitely. I mean, I'm also feeling this thing as a middle-aged guy, father, of like, I'm not happy with a lot of stuff that's happening in the world. And I've been asked a lot, like, why are you speaking out like on this? And I feel like my answer now is, if I can't, who can? I'm a white, like rich, college-educated man.
Yeah. With status in public from
Status of,
television.
Like, if I can't do it, isn't that setting a terrible example for everybody else? You know what I mean? I mean, not that people who aren't doing or doing anything wrong. It's just like, don't I like... I just feel like I have a responsibility.
If you feel the need, if you feel the pull, then you should do it.
And I feel like, weirdly, I'm way qualified for this.
Yeah.
Like, it's strange.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to say, especially for people that only know me from the OC.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if they've been listening for this long, like they'll be like, okay.
But also, I think a lot of people, I imagine, would just be like, why do you care, right?
Yeah.
That's like a legit question. Like, why do you even care? Let these people do the thing and gamble on the thing. But for me, I know why I kind of say out loud a lot about it or push back is like, I feel protective of the people that are getting hoodwinked. Like, I don't love that these dudes are getting sold a bill of goods. And I feel like I'm in a position to say like, hey man, I have that kind of calling to that.
Totally. And I mean, I'm on the side of the people that are investing. I'm trying to protect them. And I will point out, the industry is the one that is not protecting them. The industry is the one, they'll do the performative, like, oh, I'm so sorry you lost your money. They're not doing anything about it.
Right.
They're not like actually changing the system. What they're doing is watering down the regulations to give special rules so that they don't have to operate like banks, or they don't, which do have law. We don't like the banks and they're fail all the time, but they do have to like adhere to laws and regulations.
They can be held accountable.
Right. And they really don't want to be regulated like securities because the disclosure thing we talked about. So there's a bill that's trying to get through Congress called the Clarity Act, where it's going to put it under the CFTC, the Commodities Future Trading Commission, which is the weaker, smaller regulatory agency. And they've long wanted this, and they may get it. Sam Bankman-Fried wanted this too. That's why he was on Capitol Hill and all those clips and and so it's like, they're the ones that are screwing you guys. I don't know if you can see it or not, and whether you want to admit it, but I'm on your side.
Or the retail customer has not got two accounts and driving up the price of it. They don't have that kind of leverage.
Those are all the insiders. Who benefits in crypto is the insiders, right? Always. It's always the exchange owners, or the guys that issue the coins. There are always people behind the coins other than Bitcoin, but even Bitcoin, they're essentially are in the sense of that, like, because Bitcoin was so cheap initially, the people at this top of this pyramid, the people that bought in really, really early and have like the whales, they call them, like they can do a lot to affect the price, I feel like, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So it's if it was a commodity, it would be like a commodity where they have cornered the market in a way. You know?
And can sell to themselves, and that's crazy.
Yes.
Well, Ben, I just am delighted you made this movie. It's a highly, highly entertaining movie. It's out right now in New York and LA.
Yep.
Again, it's called Everyone is Lying to You for Money, and it's a fucking just very well done doc, and it's insanely entertaining. All this technical stuff is just it's just floating in there for you to grab. It's very character driven.
If you've made it through this interview,
we have very smart listeners.
You do have very smart listeners. You're going to love the movie because it's way a piece of entertainment. Yeah, if you're in LA, AMC Burbank and Limley Royal, New York IFC Center, and Alamo Drafthouse Brooklyn. And, this is a true indie. There's no, financed it.
Uh-oh. Yep. Weren't you an econ major? Did Dave tell you to finance it?
I financed it. This is in my book. I financed
crypto?
it. I financed it partially off of a short bet that I made.
Oh, really?
I bet that crypto was going to crash. And I was betting against a bunch of frauds. So this film is partially financed by me putting my money where my mouth is and actually betting. That's in the book. It's at the end of the
And you already have a streamer deal, or you'll have a streamer deal?
That's been weird. I don't know. I think we'll get there.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's a weird environment, you know what I mean? But I think if people show up at the theater, especially these first couple weeks, it's
going to get written about a lot.
It draws from an interesting crowd because I feel like everyone has heard about crypto, but 80+% of the country has never bought any.
Yeah.
And they always say the same thing when I ask them. I'm like, what do you think about it? They go, I don't know. I guess it's me. I guess I'm stupid. It seems complicated but scammy. And I made the movie for them to say, it's not you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, your intuition.
Yeah, trust yourself. It's not you, it's them. And
there's no there.
Yeah, and so go and have an hour and a half experience and have a few laughs. And then if you want a deep dive, you can read the book. But yeah, audiences are loving it. So
Easy Money is the book.
Easy Money.
New York Times bestseller. So also look into that. Ben, this has been a blast.
Thanks, Dax.
You're so bright. It's very,
so are you, man.
Very,
Jeez.
very attractive.
Impressive.
Isn't it?
And I really appreciate that
All right,
you didn't reference that show.